Pre-Gap Bundle. Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and welcome to the library. We're coming to you from here today because we're going to be touching into a topic that I've wanted to do for quite some time. And the interesting part was this video actually got bumped in my schedule because of something that happened last week. Here's the deal, guys. As you guys may or may not know, one of the things that we really like here on the channel are the work and the art of Barry Windsor Smith. We love the stuff he did in the early Conan, the Weapon X saga that he did, and even later on when he was diving into Rune and some other characters. He's been doing quality work for a long, long time. But there are some things that happened a long time ago that some people today might not be aware of. And in fact, I can tell you, after some good conversations recently, most people, as near as I can figure, are completely unaware of this. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the topic of Barry Windsor Smith giant art panels. Now, I know that's going to be said, and a lot of people are going to go, what? No, trust me. This is a thing. I can tell you, in the Tennessee Fats collection, I have 2 of them. So they exist. Are there more? I actually don't know, but I know of these 2. So today we're sharing with you the first of them that really, I think, is the easiest one to share. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the camera around. You're going to sit down at the desk. We're going to walk through how the video I shot last week actually relates to this very topic. Then we're going to start diving into the books and how you could recognize them when you're out in the shops so that you can pick them up if you're interested. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to take a giant shot of this. I'll have to do it on the floor because it takes a lot of space. And we'll actually pan through the panels and see what they are and how they go together in one giant piece. That'll be a weird one because we're going to have to kind of freeform that as we're going along. So, just bear with me as we get through it. Now, for those people who stick around to the very end, and I can guarantee you, most people right now have already skipped through this intro and aren't even listening. They've already jumped ahead into the chapters. For those of you Tennessee Fats loyals who stick around for the Easter eggs, I'm actually going to share with you another one that actually came out before this one. It could be where they even got the idea to do this one. I don't know. I wasn't working in the company at the time. But without any further ado, let's turn the camera around, sit down at the desk, and let's talk about the books. All right, so let's walk through, well, I guess how we got here, number 1. And number 2, what the heck here is. I think these are pertinent questions, so we're going to cover them today. So, as I mentioned in the intro, when we were shooting this video last week, well, not this video, but when we were shooting a video last week, the video being this one, which was the Conan the Adventurer series from 1994, 1995. When I was going through that, I got a little triggered. And something triggered me. And it was just an image, but I want to share it with you here. And bear with me here. This is the old man ramble, and we got to get you the context, okay? You got to understand where this is coming from for me, because this is important for me to give you my truth. Yes, let's phrase it that way. I saw this image. Now, this is just a splash page, and it's just advertising. That's all it is. It's advertising for how Marvel was running its integration with the Malibu and Ultraverse universe. Now, for those of us who are collecting comics at this point in time who read Malibu and were a fan of any of the Malibu titles, I can tell you the Marvel and Malibu merger is a highly contentious issue. We don't like that topic. We don't like to talk about it. We don't like it at all because if you were a fan of the Malibu comics, the problem with that merger was they all died. And I don't mean the characters died. Well, some of them did. Never mind now. What happened was that you don't get to see that IP in print anymore, ever. It's gone. In fact, I've actually thought about collecting up a bunch of those runs and making custom-bound editions, specifically so I would have them and I would be able to read them, because I really enjoyed reading them back then. The problem being is, well, when Marvel bought that, I actually suspect, as most Malibu fans do, that Marvel only bought that just because it was the cheapest way to make that piece of competition go away for taking their market share. Because those characters have never come into print since. So, the image I showed you was one where it was, okay, this is how we're integrating it. Fine. Set aside the anger and the hostility that I personally bear for that. But it made me suddenly remember something. What it made me remember was that I was at my local comic shop about 2 weeks before shooting that video. And when I was there, the guy said, hey, Tennessee, we've got a whole bunch of new books over there in the bargain bins. And I believe we have a complete Unity run for you. That's a Valiant arc that happened. And you're never going to see that in a reprint either, or in a collection, because 2 pieces of IP are no longer with Valiant at all. And since they were integral parts of that story, you can't get that arc anymore because 4 issues in it? Yeah, 4 issues, they're just not allowed to reproduce. So just like that, you're not going to be able to get any Malibu collections because, well, nobody's doing that. But anyways, they pointed out, they said, hey, head over there and see if you can find them. Well, they did have 12 of them, but that wasn't the complete run. So I was like, no, I'm not doing it. But while I was there and I was digging, I saw a stack of books, and the minute I saw them, I was flipping through them, I thought, oh, these are strange. I recognize these, but I don't really recognize these. Why don't I? I thought, what are they? And it was a big stack of books. And I said, well, I'm not looking for a big stack of books. So I'm good. I'm going to head on home, and away I go. Just sort of filed that in my old man brain. But when I saw that image when we were shooting our review of the Conan the Adventurer series, it suddenly made me remember that stack. And it suddenly made me remember is the phrase we're going for there. A promise I made to myself a while ago in my book where I was writing down, here's all of the topics that I want to cover in my upcoming videos. And it made me do a little bit of a shift, and it made me shift this video forward. I originally planned to share with you guys a Barry Windsor Smith giant panel review, because there are a couple times back in the 90s that I know of where Barry Windsor Smith did that. He produced a single panel, which was to be collected over a variety of issues and put together to make a huge piece when you had it all together. Now, one of those we'll talk about way at the end of this video. The other one, though, was a Malibu one, and it had to do with a character that we've talked about on this channel. And it's interesting because since I posted last week's video, I've actually seen comments referencing this very character. And it has to do with a character that we covered in a Conan versus video. The video we covered on that one looked like this. It was the Conan versus Rune 3-part series. And I'll put a link to that down in the description below if you really want to check that out. And it made me remember, oh yeah, he did do that. And then I remembered that stack of books. So promptly, the first working day I had where I was thinking, okay, I can run into the shop and the shop was open, I ran over to that bin and it was still there. Now, this is a stack of books that I can tell you has obviously, somebody loved these books because these are in pristine condition for very low value books. And you can tell they've never been sealed. They're in terrible greasy bags with the horrible boards, which I will have to rebag and reboard if I do choose to actually keep these. But what's in these was something that not even the shop understood. So I said, no, we're going to cover this one. And this is the one we're going to put in the video. And we'll save the other one maybe just as an Easter egg for the Tennessee Fats loyal. So that's how we got here. So now let's talk about the what's here. Okay, so what's here? Well, that's kind of a loaded question. There's a lot of things that I could say is what's here. No, we're talking about the what's here as in the what is it, and what are we covering today? What we're covering today specifically is this stack of books, the ones I just showed you. Way back in the month of October of 1993, prior to the Marvel and Malibu merger, Malibu was launching a new flagship character. Malibu had already launched Prime, they had launched Mantra, and those were running along okay. Freaks was actually the series that they had launched that I was fascinated with. I thought it was like somebody redoing the X-Men. I thought it was just a cool series, cool concept. The Strangers was another good one that they had. But they had a couple flagship things that were already going. Well, they decided they needed more. And who else to do this but to bring in the great Barry Windsor Smith, and let's see what he's got. And he brought in Rune. Now, as I mentioned in the intro to this, we've already done a character review of Rune. We talked through who Rune was in that Conan versus Rune trilogy thing. But what they did when they were launching this was they decided they would do this giant event in October of 1993, which I would call Bloody October of 1993, because the story of Rune is a bloody one. He is a vampire. He eats people. And I don't just mean drinking their blood. He literally eats people. Like, this is a harsh character to make a flagship character, but Malibu took the gamble and did it. So when they were launching this, to make sure that everybody knew what this was, they decided to make an 11-part series, an 11-part crossover, where every comic that was issued in October of 1993 had a 3-page insert in the back. It was a flip book. And what it did was it walked through a story that would become the eventual idea of Rune Number 0. Now, Rune Number 0, interestingly enough, was a mail-away book that you could choose to order if you took all the coupons that were in these 11 books and sent them in with a certain amount of money. You got Rune Number 0, and I believe the other one you got was The Strangers Number 0. It was a 2-part deal that you got. We're not going to talk about the Strangers one here. We're going to talk about the Rune one here. And the reason why we're specifically going to talk about the Rune one is because all of the back covers come together to make the giant panel. Now, if you did just save yourself the time and went out there and picked up Rune Number 0, I'm sure you can find it on eBay right now or a lot of places. You'll have the image that we're going to be showcasing today, but it's just going to be comic-sized. That's it. And I believe there was even a reprint of that Rune Number 0 that was issued and came with Spin Magazine. Yeah, there's an old name that you probably don't even remember. Spin Magazine from all the way back then as well. And they would have been released around January of 1994, months after the October of 1993 start of this Rune Number 0 collaboration. So what we're going to do today is we're going to show you guys each individual book and how you can recognize these when you're out in the shops if you're looking for them. Just to give you the context of what's the books. And that's the part we're going to look down at the desk. The last part we're going to do is we're going to take all of these and put them all together in the giant collage on the floor over there. We'll take some shots of that, and then we'll walk through what we're looking at on that. It's kind of interesting. Well, we'll save that one until we actually get there. All right, let's turn the camera around. Let's look at the books. Okay, let's go through the entire stack of books here. Now, I'll tell you, this is how the books were presented when I was at my local comic shop. And I can tell you, I have seen them presented this way at conventions before. So you need to be aware, if you're looking for these, of the front and the back. And we'll flip each of these for you guys so you get a sense of what all 11 issues that came out in October of 1993 looked like. I'll also give you a brief snippet here of when I read these, what I remember about them, and what I can compare them to. Maybe you want to pick up some Malibu issues and read them yourselves. They're cheap enough in the dollar bins. Why not? Cheaper than buying new stuff. So what you're going to see when you're looking at these, if they are presented backwards, is you'll see that they have Rune in the title and they have a letter up here at the front. Now the letter is there so you know what order to read these in. Remember, there's only 3 pages per book. And if you're spending $1 on it, effectively you're spending 33 cents a page. So you got to be aware of what you're spending here, okay? When you were buying these back in October of 1993, some of these would come out with multiple in a single week. The reason for that being is you had 11 books and only 4 real weeks where you were spitting these out. So you needed to know what order to read them in. And if you have them, the problem being the actual image doesn't follow the A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It doesn't do that. So you need to know this lettering because the story doesn't go in Q. There, I think that makes sense. Now, I'm telling you this and I'm making you aware of this because, as I mentioned in the intro, I've had many conversations at cons as well as with comic shops where they're completely unaware of this. And when I pick these up, I can tell you even my local comic shop had no idea what these were. I walked over to the cache with these and I said, look what I found. I said, I found the entire collection of the Barry Windsor Smith Rune giant panel. And they said, well, what is that? And I said, well, it's this. And I walked them through why this was made and how it was made and what they were doing. And they're like, I don't think we even knew that. And that is a common sentiment I hear. They're low value books. Most retailers are not going to take the time to figure out what these are. When they see them like this, they're not going to flip them over to say, well, what is this in, for example, I don't know, the Mantra run. Nobody's going to do that. Why would they care? So we're doing this so you guys know. You guys know, not you guys. This is the book. This is you. Yeah. All right. Let's start going through these line by line here, okay? Rune A. And I'm going to set this over here, and then we're going to start flipping these over so you can see them. Rune A is in... Oh, Sludge number 1. Sludge is kind of an interesting character. And I would say he's kind of like a garbage Swamp Thing, but again, I don't mean garbage as in it's a terrible series, and it's just garbage as in don't read it. What I mean is he's literally made of garbage. Kind of a fun one, very much a Swamp Thing type story. It was a good read. I actually enjoyed that one, so if you want to check that out, feel free. All right, Rune B. Let's flip this one over. Oh, Prime. Okay, so this was in Prime number 5. Prime is an interesting character, and he's kind of like a Shazam. And the reason why I say that is because he's an adolescent, well, not an adolescent, he's a teen, and he's suddenly got the abilities to do something that's similar to a Captain Marvel, or not Captain Marvel, Shazam, Captain Marvel. Yeah, Captain Marvel or Superman. Interesting character, and later on they do try to make him a little more edgy as Malibu was winding down. Again, I don't want to go too far into that. If you want to read the character, he is a fun one. Interesting reading the sort of the teen drama of this guy being a complete dip while he's running this giant, it's like external skin type body. Yeah. And awesome art by an awesome artist. Another one of the favorites of the channel. All right, Rune C. Now, as I mentioned, you notice that the images don't go in order, right? Like, I don't know. We'll see it when we put it all together, okay? All right, Rune C. Flip her over. What we got? This one is, Nightman. Okay, Nightman character, I don't understand at all. I do not get this character. I can tell you, I bought a couple of these when they came out. I tried to read it. I tried to care. I couldn't do it. Just a character I never connected with. which is interesting because when Marvel brought them together, Malibu and the Marvel Universe, this is one they tried hard to introduce and keep in the Marvel Universe and keep relevant for a period of time. Not a good choice. All right, Rune D. What's this one? Oh, Hardcase. Okay, Hardcase is an interesting one. He's actually one of the original superheroes from the Ultraverse and was part of a superhero group. And all the superheroes that were in his superhero group died. He's the only one left. And after that, he becomes an actor. I didn't see that coming. Interesting character, kind of a neat little thing. Almost the actor type stuff that's involved in this series is almost like the 1990s Wonder Man Marvel content, if you're interested in that. All right, Rune E. What do we got here? Oh, Freaks. Okay, Freaks, as I mentioned, this was my all-time favorite Malibu / Ultraverse series. I love this series. It was very much an X-Men series where, unlike the X-Men, who are trying to defend a world that can't stand them and hates them, these kids are just trying to survive. And they are kids, and they are mutants, and they have a variety of things that change, and new characters come in, and characters kind of go out, but still are always there. I'll tell you what I found with this, though. I did go through a period where I got every single issue of the Freaks. Read it from beginning to end as an adult, remembering this as a teenager. And when this whole Marvel Malibu thing unwound, they left this as a horrible cliffhanger. This was horrible. And the characters that you were relating to and that you really enjoyed were just left out hung out to dry. I did not enjoy how Marvel and Malibu unwound this one. Not cool at all. That's again. Do you see the hostility that comes from the whole people who are Malibu fans with this whole murder? Do you see? Yeah, see, all these years later, still pissing me off. Okay, Rune F. Oh, Prototype. Okay, Prototype. I don't need to give you anything on this guy. He's Malibu's version of Iron Man. There you go. Done. All right. Rune G. What's this one? This one is The Strangers. Okay, The Strangers are a cool one. They're a group of people that get together that all magically get powers at one moment in time, and they are strangers when they get them. They're being guided by this one godlike creature that has more knowledge of the metaverse than them. They do run into some bad guys. Yeah, it's basically the Ultraverse version of the Avengers. Cool characters. I did enjoy that one. That's one that I'd say if you wanted to put that together and do a custom binding to make an omnibus yourself, that'd be a fun one to do. Rune H. The Exiles. Okay, this one only made it to 4 issues. And the reason why this one only made it to 4 issues was because issue 4 of this was the big shocker. Issue 4 of this was the one that basically was the beginning of the unwinding of the Ultraverse Malibu universe. It was a long, protracted point from here. But I actually believe that issue 4 of this was also where Marvel got the idea to start off the Civil War, which they did after this, after they bought the rights, because the events in issue 4 of this is equally as cataclysmic. I enjoyed the Exile series, and I can tell you when issue 4 came out, and you can Google it online to find out what happens, it was a shocker. That was a shocker. They purposely hid what was going on in that one from us in the reading public. All right, Rune I. Oh, Firearm. Okay, I never read much of Firearm. It was just too darn gritty. Never really had any interest in it. I think probably the only issue that I actually remember reading was this issue because it was the flip book to the Rune story. If you want to pick it up, go ahead. I think he's a detective, if I'm remembering correctly. All right, Rune J. What's this one here? Oh, Mantra. Okay, Mantra was one of the flagship titles for Malibu. And this was a very complex character. And it was one that it really kind of represented almost everything that was great with the 90s and everything that was terrible with the 90s at the exact same time. The villain character in this was a very interesting one. Larger-than-life villain character that seemed to be almost eternal. The character that was Mantra, though, wasn't who you see here. This is just the body that Mantra is inhabiting at this point in time. Mantra is this eternal warrior that's been kind of stuck into this body. And there's a lot of ethical issues with this one that are kind of blurred over in the comics. And I mean ethical issues because you have the character whose body has been taken over and their life, which has now just been summarily thrown out the window, which includes, I believe, a career, children. I think there were children, or was it a child? I can't remember. But at the end of the day, that was all kind of out the window. Other ethical issue here is you have a male ghost or spirit inhabiting this body completely ignoring everything that's going on in this individual's life because this is this single-minded hunting, killing, eternal warrior thing. And all the characters around this poor lady are suddenly disaffected by that. But again, right out of the comics. Odd one. It was a fun one. As Malibu was unwinding, they went and they created a Necromantra character as well, which was kind of weird. Just a lot of weird. But interesting one if you wanted to pick it up and actually read it. There was a second volume of Mantra as well where I believe a different character became Mantra, but I don't remember reading too much of that one. All right, Rune K, and this is the last one. And this one is in, The Solution. All right, now, most of the characters I've gone through so far, I've said this is like a Marvel character of blank or a DC character of blank. The Solution was basically Malibu's version of Bloodstrike from Image Comics. That's how I'm going to call this one, or Brigade from Image Comics. You can choose which one of those you want it to be because they were basically the same team. Oh, burn! Anyways, this is an interesting one. I enjoyed it. It didn't make it very far into the series as well, but they did have a fairly important role in the Cataclysm, which I believe was called Breakout, wherein you had a lot of the characters involved in one giant event. So those are the issues that you're looking for here when you're out in the world. And this is how you might see them. You might see them this way. And you would, other than seeing Barry Windsor Smith's rune and the image here, you wouldn't know that this has a flip book that's sitting here. And K being the last issue, this is the last part of Rune Number 0. All right, so now you've seen them. Now, I'll tell you, what we're going to do here is we're going to go over there on the floor and lay these all out. And I'll take an image. And then what we'll do is we'll, just sort of pan over it and we'll take a look at how the whole thing goes together. Yeah, let's try that. Let's see if that works. And if it doesn't, we'll have to come up with something else while we do maybe a voiceover. Yeah, let's go with that. All right, so we go to the classic fade to black here and we get to my least favorite part of editing, which is the voiceover. So here it is in all of its glory, really. It's a 9-book giant panel where you see Rune sitting and lording over his soul stones or star stones. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And you have a beginning and an end where it says the stones are cast and death walks the earth. And it's really setting the tone of, okay, I don't think this is a good thing. Why are we doing this? But that's what Malibu went with. So let's walk through this thing in detail. There's your beginning and end issues off to the side. And you'll see that we're focusing in on basically Rune's source of his power, his ability to consume others, physically and metaphysically, which is what the soul stones are all about. He absorbs souls in those to use to cast spells later on. He's perpetually emaciated, and he's constantly hungry. He's a devouring machine, kind of like a Galactus, but not quite of the scope of Galactus. And you get the sense that he's bad because look at all the skulls and just refuse around his feet. It's not a good thing. Administratively, let's take a look at a couple of neat things here. If you look at his face there, if I actually laid these books out properly side by side, he'd have 3 nostrils. So you have to overlay that one a little bit, which I think is a common problem when you're printing many books to come together in a giant panel. The other thing that's neat to look at when you're going through this is, if anybody's noticed the lettering, none of the lettering makes sense. You have to look to the inside image and the map that's given in each issue to figure out where each book goes. It's kind of a weird thing that you wouldn't have just, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I across it the way a normal one would go. But, it's what it is. So once again, coming back to, is this a good guy? No. Is he a bad guy? Well, yeah, look at that face. That's not a good guy. And really, what's the source of all this? And it's setting the tone. It all comes down to the stones. Really an interesting setup for the series. All right, let's wrap this bad boy up and let's have a conversation about what you guys can do next. I'll tell you, it's not often I get to take something that I enjoyed so much as a teenager and share it with you guys on this channel. Because really, you guys, we focus here on Conan. But because of the whole Conan Rune series that we covered earlier, the thumbnail looks like that in the video we made. And the comments that I'm seeing on that last video where somebody's, again, referencing the Conan Rune, Battle Royale, it gave me the impetus to say, yeah, we can do this. And finding that stack in the local comic shop where somebody obviously cared about these enough to keep them together for this very reason and displayed them on their own, inverted, so they knew these are what they are. And then the local comic shop having really no idea what they are. It was just meant to be. So I hope you enjoyed that one, everybody. And that's really an example of a giant Barry Windsor Smith panel. He's done a couple. I have 2 in my own collection, as I mentioned in the intro. This is just one of them. If you really want to see that kind of detail and you enjoy Barry Windsor Smith as much as I do, head out, get the list. go shop for these. Buy them. I'm sure that probably somebody on eBay even has already done the work for you, and all you need to do is just click the purchase button. Now, how you would display it's going to be a tough one. As I mentioned, we scanned over that actual giant collage of the image. There are some that don't fit correctly together. Right down in the bottom corner, there might be other print, there might be other copies that maybe fit better than the ones that I have. You might run into that issue as well. But I imagine if you sandwich this together in a tight enough frame, it might look pretty darn cool. And I imagine if you do some digging, you're probably going to find somebody that's actually done the work for you. Everybody, that's our video for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one. And I'm gonna need you. Welcome to the end of the video, everybody. Welcome to the Easter egg. You guys know, who have stuck around to this point, what we do here. And this one's actually a bit of a leak because early, a bit of a leak. That's funny. All right, never mind that now. This one we actually referenced early in the video, and I said, if you stick around, you Tennessee Fats loyal, I actually think I know where this came from. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to share it with you. No, I said I'm sharing one of the two Giant Barry Windsor Smith panels. No. For you loyals who have stuck around, we're going to look at the second one now. Yeah. Okay, I had to go over to the library, over there, and actually get the giant book out. And this is, we got to go back and actually get a bit of history here. So remember how I said this one was done, or the one we covered in this video, was done in October of 1993. And I called that the bloody month of October 1993 because it was a very gory story. But that's not what the first one was. The first one that I have in the collection is actually all the way back from Valiant Comics. Now you remember, in the video, I referenced the Unity saga. And I referenced how there's two characters that Valiant doesn't have the rights to anymore, which is why you're never going to see that reprinted. And that is Magnus Robot Fighter and Solar Man of the Atom. Solar Man of the Atom is important because that's actually the first of these two where I think Malibu got the idea to pull off that giant panel we covered today. Now, here's some interesting quinky dinkies that came out of this one, which I find kind of funny. When I went to the shop and I picked up that stack of books, the one that we looked at earlier, there was another thing sitting right there. And the funny part about this other thing was it was sitting right in the same bin as that stack of Malibu books, and it was this. Now, some of you might recognize this. This is Solar Man of the Atom number 10. Now, if you're a Valiant fan, you were a Valiant fan in the early 1990s, this book meant a lot to you because this is the first appearance of the Eternal Warrior. This thing instantly became very hard to get and very expensive. This is actually the second print. You can tell because here, I'll do a shine on this. You can see the little 2 there. Second print, so not worth nearly as much as the first print. And this one I think has a spine tick in it, so it's not all that important. But for $2, I said, yeah, I'll buy another copy. Why not? What's the quinky dink is that the earlier one that happened in 1991 to 1992 was in that book. That's right, it was a Valiant project, and what it was launched in was in Solar Man of the Atom number 1, which was in what, September of 1991? And it ran all the way to number 10, which I believe was in June of 1992. That one right there. And what's in there is a story that's called Alpha and Omega. The funny thing about reading Solar Man of the Atom number 1, if you ever pick that one up, is the story kind of starts at a point in time where you're going, well, what happened before this? And what happened before it was effectively Solar Man of the Atom number 0. And that number 0 was stuck in the middle of, as an insert to, all of the books that were Solar Man of the Atom number 1 through 10. And within that, the centerfold, the gatefold cover, or the gatefold image that was in the middle, made up one panel that went into the overall Giant panel, the earlier Giant Barry Windsor Smith Giant panel that came out. And if you had all of them, you could lie them all out and look at them and say, this is the whole thing. And I can tell you, here, it looks like this. And of course, I'm going to open this up. I'm going to show you guys an imaging. You're like, what the heck, Tennessee Fastest? It looks like this. I'll take a picture of this and we'll stick it up over there so you guys can get a good look at what was in number 10. And that's the nuclear explosion. That's in the bottom corner, I believe, of the Giant panel. That was what Barry Windsor Smith was going for. And the detailing here is phenomenal. And that actual Alpha and Omega story is really, really, really good. I would encourage any of you to check it out. But the point of this one isn't so much about the story. It's about the actual panel. Ergo, we jump into the next Quinky Dink. I just happen to own a copy of the boxed Solar Man of the Atom number 0. And I got this. I found this actually at a little mini comic convention thing that was happening right outside where I have some of my books cleaned and pressed. And they had this here. It had a little bit of the shrink wrap still on it, but it had been opened. And it's funny because the vendor was like, but it's okay, my brother opened it. I'm like, it's still open. But the best part about it was I like the fact that it's open because I can actually go into it. I was actually going to save this book and go into it in a separate video where I was going to say, what's in that? Because there are certain things in my collection where, quite frankly, I don't want to know what's inside it. But I know what is inside here, and it's this. This is the Giant fold-out panel thing. So what we're going to do here is I'm not going to talk through this one. I'm saving this one for you guys just to enjoy. We'll get this thing flattened out on the floor over there where I did the Rune Giant panel. And I'll take a bunch of shots of this, not roving camera over it, and I'll overlay these at the end where you guys can just see the zoom in that we'll do in each panel, and you can see the level of detail that's in this thing. If any of you really want this poster, I'm sure you could probably get yourself on the eBay. I'm sure somebody's willing to sell it. But I'll tell you, if you really want the whole story and to enjoy it, I would encourage you just to save out. Get this fancy box thing. It's got the whole story in it. It's Barry Windsor Smith all the way through. It's just beautiful work. All right, I'm going to stop talking now. I'm just going to share the images with you guys. I hope you enjoy this.
Bye.